Welcome, Red Knight.
Hello there, and good evening. Here we are for some good times this terrific Tuesday, going to continue the thing on the doorstep finally from 2 weeks ago. Last time we did raid Lovecraft Tale here. We'll take a look at Star Siege, other things, few rounds of Hunt today. Was able to finish the Stalker Beetle quest line, so that was wonderful. Had some big packet loss for like frame issues, lag issues, but it was okay. And then we will get to some Macbeth afterwards. One more review of the script, probably my last ever really full review of the script for the rest of the production run. Unless, of course, we go on tour throughout the state of California. All theaters and all, that would be fun, but doesn't look like it. So let's get started for now. And then we shall see after those couple good readings for an hour or two. We will probably get to some Diablo 2 to finish off for the night. Save Darkest for next time, other time, because we are in a pretty good spot between the Crimson Courtyard and the Estate to just leave off on that for a little while. So we'll come back to it soon enough. But Diablo 2 and 3 await for Diablo 4 at some point. Damn Wizard looking absolutely lovely on the sub-gift leaderboard for the month of June. Alright then, well, let's get started with the thing on the doorstep. It has been quite some time since we started this for a mobile stream last time at post rehearsal, I believe it was, so that was pretty good. And we will find that where we left off. Remember, we did leave off part 3, chapter 3, so this will be part 2 of the thing on the doorstep. Let's find it real quick. There it is, the thing in the moonlight and the thing on the doorstep. Not sure if we read thing in the moonlight, but for now we're on the thing on the doorstep. Did I say on the doorstep correctly? Yes, okay. So the thing on the doorstep, we left off at the end of part 2. Let's just read that last paragraph there. Her home in that town was a rather disquieting place, but certain objects in it had taught him some surprising things. He was progressing fast in esoteric lore now that he had Asenath's guidance. Some of the experiments she proposed were very daring and radical. He did not feel at liberty to describe them, but he had confidence in his powers and intentions. The three servants were very queer, an incredibly aged couple who had been with old Ephraim and referred occasionally to him and to Asenath's dead mother in a cryptic way, and a swarthy young wench who had marked anomalies of feature and seemed to exude a perpetual odor of fish. Okay, that is where we left off, so we'll pick it up right from there. And I was thinking frame drop was gonna jump here erratically because of Wi-Fi, but so far so good. Typically do like with Lovecraft Tuesday to have, you know, decent music accompaniment somewhat, so yeah, let's load that up and just start something new, I guess. See what else we have. Breaking Bad clips, watching the Dirty Trejo things.
Get the best builds in game with Mobilytics.
Mobilytics. They literally have apps for games now. That is so ridiculous. Alright. We'll do some music accompaniment. Hopefully not too bad on the frame drop. Try that out for a little while. And we will go from there. If you like the display up, let me know. Otherwise, we'll just read. Alright then, let us continue on then with part 3. Thing on the doorstep for now. Look forward to chat with you, and stickers await their debut for the very first time on stream. Voice mod also available, very quick demonstration for that. Robot, for example, is here. And we of course have avatars and other fun features, including champion commands for you to enjoy. Let's get to it then. I have a broadcast steady and stable far as I can tell in Discord. Firebot will remain minimized for now. And we begin then with part 3, the thing on the doorstep. And here it is. For the next 2 years, I saw less and less of Derby. A fortnight would sometimes slip by without the familiar 3 and 2 strokes at the front door. And when he did call, or when, as happened with increasing infrequency, I called on him. He was very little disposed to converse on vital topics. He had become secretive about those occult studies which he used to describe and discuss so minutely, and preferred not to talk of his wife. She had aged tremendously since her marriage, till now, oddly enough, she seemed the elder of the two. Her face held the most concentratedly determined expression I had ever seen, and her whole aspect seemed to gain a vague, unplaceable repulsiveness. My wife and son noticed it as much as I, and we all ceased gradually to call on her, for which Edward admitted in one of his boyishly tactless moments she was unmitigatedly grateful. Occasionally, the Derbys would go on long trips, ostensibly to Europe, though Edward sometimes hinted at obscurer destinations. It was after the first year that people began talking about the change in Edward Derby. It was very casual talk, for the change was purely psychological, but it brought up some interesting points. Now and then, it seemed, Edward was observed to wear an expression and to do things wholly incompatible with his usual flabby nature. For example, although in the old days he could not drive a car, he was now seen occasionally to dash into or out of the old Crown and Shield driveway with Asenath's powerful Packard, handling it like a master, and meeting traffic entanglements with a skill and determination utterly alien to his accustomed nature. In such cases, he seemed always to be just back from some trip or just starting on one. What sort of trip, no one could guess, although he mostly favored the Innsmouth Road. Oddly, the metamorphosis did not seem altogether pleasing. People said he looked too much like his wife, or like old Ephraim Wade himself. In these moments, or perhaps these moments seemed unnatural because they were so rare. Sometimes, hours after staring out in this way, he would return listlessly sprawled on the rear seat of the car while an obviously hired chauffeur or mechanic drove. Also, his preponderant aspect on the streets during his decreasing round of social contacts, including, I may say, his calls on me, was the old-time indecisive one. Its irresponsible childishness even more marked than in the past. While Asenath's face aged, Edward's, aside from those exceptional occasions, actually relaxed into a kind of exaggerated immaturity, save when a trace of the new sadness or understanding would flash across it. It was really very puzzling. Meanwhile, the Derbys almost dropped out of the gay college circle, not through their own disgust, we heard, but because something about their present studies shocked even the most callous of the other decadents. It was in the third year of the marriage that Edward began to hint openly to me of a certain fear and dissatisfaction. He would let fall remarks about things going too far, and would talk darkly about the need of saving his identity. At first I ignored such references, but in time I began to question him guardedly, remembering what my friend's daughter had said about Asenath's hypnotic influence over the other girls at school. The cases where students had thought they were in her body looking across the room at themselves. This questioning seemed to make him at once alarmed and grateful, and once he mumbled something about having a serious talk with me later. About this time, old Mr. Derby died, for which I was afterward very thankful. Edward was badly upset, though by no means disorganized. He had seen astonishingly little of his parent since his marriage, for Asenath had concentrated in herself all his vital sense of family linkage. Some called him callous in his loss, especially since those jaunty and confident moods in the car began to increase. He now wished to move back into the old Derby mansion, but Asenath insisted on staying in the Crown and Shield house, to which she had become well adjusted. Not long afterward, my wife heard a serious thing from a friend, one of the few who had not dropped the Derbys. She had been out to the end of High Saint to call on the couple, and had seen a car shoot briskly out of the drive with Edward's oddly confident and almost sneering face above the wheel. Ringing the bell, she had been told by the repulsive wench that Asenath was also out, but had chanced to look up at the house and leaving. There, at one of the Edwards library windows, she had glimpsed a hastily withdrawn face, a face whose expression of pain, defeat, and wistful hopelessness was poignant beyond description. It was, incredibly enough in view of its usual domineering cast, Asenath's, yet the caller had vowed that in that instant the sad, muddled eyes of poor Edward were gazing out from it. Edward's calls now grew a trifle more frequent, and his hints occasionally became concrete. What he said was not to be believed. Even in centuried and legend-haunted Arkham, but he threw out his dark lore with a sincerity and convincingness which made one fear for his sanity. He talked about terrible meetings in lonely places, of cyclopean ruins in the heart of the Maine woods, beneath which vast staircases lead down to abysses of nighted secrets, of complex angles that lead through invisible walls to other regions of space and time, and of hideous exchanges of personality that permitted explorations in remote and forbidden places, on other worlds, and in different space-time continua. He would now and then back up certain crazy hints by exhibiting objects which utterly nonplussed me. Elusively colored and baffling textured objects like nothing ever heard of on Earth, whose insane curves and surfaces answered no conceivable purpose and followed no conceivable geometry. These things, he said, came from outside, and his wife knew how to get them. Sometimes, but always in frightened and ambiguous whispers, he would suggest things about old Ephraim Waite, whom he had seen occasionally at the college library in the old days. These adumbrations were never specific, but seemed to revolve around some especially horrible doubt as to whether the old wizard were really dead, in a spiritual as well as corporeal sense. At times, Derby would halt abruptly in his revelations, and I wondered whether Asenath could possibly have divined his speech at a distance and cut him off through some unknown sort of telepathic mesmerism, some power of the kind she had displayed at school. Certainly, she suspected that he told me things, for as the weeks passed, she tried to stop his visits with words and glances of a most inexplicable potency. Only with difficulty could he get to see me, for although he would pretend to be going somewhere else, some invisible force would generally clog his motions or make him forget his destination for the time being. His visits usually came when Asenath was away in her own body, as he once oddly put it. She always found out later. The servants watched his goings and comings, but evidently she thought it inexpedient to do anything drastic. That is the end of part 3. A couple things to mention before we move on to part 4. First, I see good lurker. Specific lurker I was actually hoping to talk to, ironically enough. I am glad to see that I inspired you for some of these good emotes you got there, similar to my rip is your rip. Dragon Skull, of course, so hope to chat with you soon. Miss Lurker, who will not be named quite yet at this time, just because lurk mode, but still good to see you in any case. And yeah, the thing I wanted to mention before we move on to part 4 is the playlist for all these good Lovecraft readings and other such. We will compile soon. They'll all be there on YouTube to get together soon, so that is very exciting. Well, of course, they're on Twitch for 2 weeks. YouTube is where they are immortalized for all conceivable time. And as for plugging tonight to get more active audience and active chatters, I didn't think it's worth it to post to Instagram, Facebook stories, things like that, though I did post on one Facebook friend's comment section for the stream. I think it is better to save the stories and other posts and such, even for Ace the Sly Instagram. I think it's better to save that for the show, Macbeth covered a second weekend. I'm going to be making some posts, I think, for the cast, everything I have so far tomorrow. And then I hope to actually get to a real TikTok besides just plugs for the stream TikTok. I want to make just a fun little sound with my costume. Ideally, to have a sword, but they did not get me a sword for the show. Could do my own longsword here, but I can't really do both a costume and my own Excalibur here. So it's basically one or the other. We'll do one with the sword here maybe later. Without the costume, we'll do one with the costume backstage without a sword. Unless someone lets me borrow their sword, but I don't really want to touch someone's sword that they need for the show. So we'll see. You don't want to touch other people's props generally, so. Anyway, it'll work out good. And yeah, no need to plug anything most for now, but we'll playlist everything come together later. Good to see our first lurker of the evening. Enjoy her emote. Now that I have inspired her for both the Hello Dragon and the Rip emote. The Hello one being somewhat similar to my dragon's, and the Rip one being very similar to my dragon's skull. Just with the Rip letters on it, I considered doing that. I think I just was happy with the dragon skull on its own, as you can see in the chill stone here below, above the lurk emote anyway, so. Good stuff for now. Just a little segue there. But evidently she thought it inexpedient to do anything drastic. We are on to part 4 of the thing on the doorstep. And here we go. Derby had been married more than 3 years on that August day when I got the telegram from Maine. I had not seen him for 2 months, but had heard he was away on business. Asenath was supposed to be with him, though watchful gossips declared there was someone upstairs in the house behind the doubly curtained windows. They had watched the purchases made by the servants, and now the town marshal of Chesuncook had wired of the draggled madman who stumbled out of the woods with delirious ravings and screamed to me for protection. It was Edward, and he had been just able to recall his own name and my name and address. Chesuncook is close to the wildest, deepest, and least explored forest belt in Maine, and it took a whole day of feverish jolting through fantastic and forbidding scenery to get there in a car. I found Derby in a cell at the town farm, vacillating between frenzy and apathy. He knew me at once and began pouring out a meaningless, half-incoherent torrent of words in my direction. Dan, for God's sake, the pit of the Shoggoths, down the 6,000 steps, the abomination of abominations. I never would let her take me, and then I found myself there. Shub-Nigurath. The shape rose up from the altar, and there were 500 that howled. The hooded thing bleated, Kamog, Kamog. That was old Ephraim's secret name in the coven. I was there, where she promised she wouldn't take me. A minute before I was locked in the library, and then I was there where she had gone with my body. In the place of utter blasphemy, the unholy pit where the black realm begins and the watcher guards the gate. I saw a Shoggoth. It changed shape. I can't stand it. I won't stand it. I'll kill her if she ever sends me there again. I'll kill that entity. Her, him, it. I'll kill it. I'll kill it with my own hands. It took me an hour to quiet him, but he subsided at last. The next day I got him decent clothes in the village and set out with him for Arkham. His fury of hysteria was spent, and he was inclined to be silent, though he began muttering darkly to himself when the car passed through Augusta, as if the sight of the city aroused unpleasant memories. It was clear that he did not wish to go home, and considering the fantastic delusions he seemed to have about his wife, delusions undoubtedly springing from some actual hypnotic ordeal to which he had been subjected, I thought it would be better if he did not. I would resolve put him up myself for a time, no matter what unpleasantness it would make with Asenath. Later, I would help him get a divorce, for most assuredly, there were mental factors which made this marriage suicidal for him. When we struck open country again, Derby's muttering faded away, and I let him nod and drowse on the seat beside me as I drove. During our sunset dash through Portland, the muttering commenced again, more distinctly than before, and as I listened, I caught a stream of utterly insane drivel about Asenath. The extent to which she had preyed on Edward's nerves was plain, for he had woven a whole set of hallucinations around her. Her present predicament, he mumbled furtively, was only one of a long series. She was getting hold of him, and he knew that someday she would never let go. Even now, she probably let him go only when she had to, because she couldn't hold on long at a time. She constantly took his body and went to nameless places for nameless rites, leaving him in her body and locking him upstairs. But sometimes she couldn't hold on, and he would find himself suddenly in his own body again in some far-off, horrible, and perhaps unknown place. Sometimes she got hold of him again, and sometimes she couldn't. Often he was left stranded somewhere as I had found him. Time and again, he had to find his way home from frightful distances, getting somebody to drive the car after he found it. The worst thing was that she was holding on to him longer and longer at a time. She wanted to be a man, to be fully human. That was why she got hold of him. She had sensed the mixture of fine wrought brain and weak will in him. Some days she would crowd him out and disappear with his body, disappear to become a great magician like her father and leave him marooned in that female shell that wasn't even quite human. Yes, he knew about the Innsmouth blood now. There had been traffic with things from the sea. It was horrible. And old Ephraim had known the secret, and when he grew old, did a hideous thing to keep alive. He wanted to live forever. Asenath would succeed. One successful demonstration had taken place already. As Derby muttered on, I turned to look at him closely, verifying the impression of change which an earlier scrutiny had given me. Paradoxically, he seemed in better shape than usual, harder, more normally developed, and without the trace of sickly flabbiness caused by his indolent habits. It was as if he had been really active and properly exercised for the first time in his coddled life. And I judged that Asenath's force must have pushed him into unwanted channels of motion and alertness. But just now his mind was in a pitiable state, for he was murmuring wild extravagances about his wife, about black magic, about old Ephraim, and about some revelation which would convince even me. He repeated names which I recognized from bygone browsings and forbidden volumes, and at times made me shudder with a certain thread of mythological consistency. of convincing coherence, which ran through his maundering. Again and again he would pause, as if to gather courage for some final and terrible disclosure. Dan, don't you remember him? The wild eyes and the unkempt beard that never turned white. He glared at me once, and I never forgot it. Now she glares that way, and I know why. He found it in the Necronomicon, the formula. I don't dare tell you the page yet, but when I do, you can read and understand. Then you will know what has engulfed me. On, body to body to body. He means never to die. The life glow, he knows how to break the link. It can flicker on a while even when the body is dead. I'll give you hints, and maybe you'll guess. Listen, Dan, do you know why my wife always takes such pains with that silly backhand writing? Have you ever seen a manuscript of old Ephraim's? Do you want to know why I shivered when I saw some hasty notes Asenath had jotted down? Asenath. Is there such a person? Why did they half think there was poison in old Ephraim's stomach? Why do the Gilmans whisper about the way he shrieked like a frightened child when he went mad and Asenath locked him up in the padded attic room where the other had been? Was it old Ephraim's soul that was locked in? Who locked in whom? Why had he been looking for months for someone with a fine mind and a weak will? Why did he curse that his daughter wasn't a son? Tell me, Daniel Upton, what devilish exchange was perpetrated in the house of horror where that blasphemous monster had his trusting, weak-willed, half-human child at his mercy? Didn't he make it permanent, as she'll do in the end with me? Tell me why that thing that calls itself Asenath writes differently when off guard, so that you can't tell its script from... Then the thing happened. Derby's voice was rising to a thin treble scream as he raved, when suddenly it was shut off with an almost mechanical click. I thought of those other occasions at my home when his confidences had abruptly ceased, when I had half fancied that some obscure telepathic wave of Asenath's mental force was intervening to keep him silent. This, though, was something altogether different, and I felt infinitely more horrible. The face beside me was twisted almost unrecognizably for a moment, while through the whole body there passed a shivering motion, as if all the bones, organs, muscles, nerves, and glands were readjusting themselves to a radically different posture. Set of stresses and general personality. Just where the supreme horror lay, I could not for my life tell. Yet there swept over me such a swamping wave of sickness and repulsion, such a freezing, petrifying sense of utter alienage and abnormality, that my grasp of the wheel grew feeble and uncertain. The figure beside me seemed less like a lifelong friend than like some monstrous intrusion from outer space, some damnable, utterly accursed focus of unknown and malign cosmic forces. I had faltered only a moment, but before another moment was over, my companion had seized the wheel and forced me to change places with him. The dusk was now very thick, and the lights of Portland far behind, so I could not see much of his face. The blaze of his eyes, though, was phenomenal, and I knew that he must now be in that queerly energized state, so unlike his usual self, which so many people had noticed. It seemed odd and incredible that listless Edward Derby, he who could never assert himself, and who had never learned to drive, should be ordering me about and taking the wheel of my own car. Yet that was precisely what had happened. He did not speak for some time, and in my inexplicable horror, I was glad he did not. In the lights of Bidford and Sacco, I saw his firmly set mouth, and shivered at the blaze of his eyes. The people were right. He did look damnably like his wife, and like old Ephraim when in these moods. I did not wonder that the moods were disliked. There were certainly something unnatural and diabolic in them. And I felt the sinister element all the more because of the wild ravings I had been hearing. This man, for all my lifelong knowledge of Edward Pickman Derby, was a stranger, an intrusion of some sort from the black abyss. Nice Targaryen red themes as always. Good enough. Okay. He did not speak until we were on a dark stretch of road, and when he did, his voice seemed utterly familiar. Utterly unfamiliar. It was deeper, firmer, and more decisive than I had ever known it to be, while its accent and pronunciation were altogether changed, though vaguely, remotely, and rather disturbingly recalling something I could not quite place. There was, I thought, a trace of very profound and very genuine irony in the timbre, not the flashy, meaninglessly jaunty pseudo-irony of the callow sophisticate which Derby had habitually affected, but something grim, basic, pervasive, and potentially evil. I marveled at the self-possession so soon following the spell of panic-struck muttering. "I hope you'll forget my attack back there, Upton," he was saying. "You know what my nerves are, and I guess you can excuse such things. I'm enormously grateful, of course, for this lift home. And you must forget, too, any crazy things I have been saying about my wife, and about things in general. That's what comes from overstudy in a field like mine. My philosophy is full of bizarre concepts, and when the mind gets worn out, it cooks up all sorts of imaginary concrete applications. I shall take a rest from now on. You probably won't see me for some time, and you needn't blame Asenath for it. This trip was a bit queer, but it's really very simple. There are certain Indian relics in the North Woods, standing stones and all that, which mean a good deal in folklore, and Asenath and I are following that stuff up. It was a hard search, so I seem to have gone off my head. I must send somebody for the car when I get home. A month's relaxation will put me back on my feet." I do not recall just what my own part of the conversation was, for the baffling alienage of my seatmate filled all my consciousness. With every moment, my feeling of elusive cosmic horror increased, till at length I was in a virtual delirium of longing for the end of the drive. Derby did not offer to relinquish the wheel, and I was glad of the speed with which Portsmouth and Newburyport flashed by. At the junction where the main highway runs inland and avoids Innsmouth, I was half afraid my driver would take the bleak shore road that goes through the damnable place. He did not, however, but darted rapidly past Rowley and Ipswich toward our destination. We reached Arkham before midnight and found the lights still on at the old Crown and Shield house. Derby left the car with a hasty repetition of his thanks, and I drove home alone with a curious feeling of relief. It had been a terrible drive, all the more terrible because I could not quite tell why, and I did not regret Derby's forecast of a long absence from my company. That is the end of part 4. We can move on to part 5 promptly, I suppose. Everything seems stable and steady enough on my end. Just need our Dragon Knights to arrive and enjoy, of course. But everything looking good for the VOD, at least. On to part 5. I'll also make a playlist for the theater performances, Melodrama and Macbeth. That'll be nice. Part 5. The next 2 months were full of rumors. People spoke of seeing Derby more and more in his new, energized state, and Asenath was scarcely ever in to her few callers. I had only one visit from Edward, when he called briefly in Asenath's car, duly reclaimed from wherever he had left it in Maine, to get some books he had lent me. He was in his new state and paused only long enough for some evasively polite remarks. It was plain that he had nothing to discuss with me when in this condition, and I noticed that he did not even trouble to give the old 3 and 2 signal when ringing the doorbell. As on that evening in the car, I felt a faint, infinitely deep horror, which I could not explain, so that his swift departure was a prodigious relief. In mid-September, Derby was away for a week, and some of the decadent college set talked knowingly of the matter, hinting at a meeting with a notorious cult leader, lately expelled from England, who had established headquarters in New York. For my part, I could not get that strange ride from Maine out of my head. The transformation I had witnessed had affected me profoundly, and I caught myself again and again trying to account for the thing and for the extreme horror it had inspired in me. But the oddest rumors were those about the sobbing in the old Crown and Shield house. The voice seemed to be a woman's, and some of the younger people thought it sounded like Asenath's. It was heard only at rare intervals, and would sometimes be choked off as if by force. There was talk of an investigation, but this was dispelled one day when Asenath appeared in the streets and chatted in a sprightly way with a large number of acquaintances, apologizing for her recent absences and speaking incidentally about the nervous breakdown and hysteria of a guest from Boston. The guest was never seen, but Asenath's appearance left nothing to be said. And then someone complicated matters by whispering that the sobs had once or twice been in a man's voice. One evening in mid-October, I heard the familiar 3 and 2 ring at the front door. Answering it myself, I found Edward on the steps, and saw in a moment that his personality was the old one, which I had not encountered since the days of his ravings on that terrible ride from Chesuncook. Just looking for where I left off here. It's hard to find just the way that the text is laid out. So give me just a moment to find that. Chess and cook wasn't the last thing I said. Oh well. Where was that? That's weird. Alright, well, we'll pick it up from here, I guess. But the oddest rumors were those about the sobbing in the old Crown and Shield house. The voice seemed to be a woman's, and some of the younger people thought it sounded like Asenath's. It was heard only at rare intervals, and would sometimes be choked off as if by force. There was talk of an investigation, but this was dispelled one day when Asenath appeared in the streets and chatted in a sprightly way with a large number of acquaintances, apologizing for her recent absences, and speaking incidentally about the nervous breakdown and hysteria of the guest from Boston. The guest was never seen, but Asenath's appearance left nothing to be said. And then someone complicated matters by whispering that the sobs had once or twice been in a man's voice. One evening in mid-October, I heard the familiar 3 and 2 ring at the front door. Answering it myself, I found Edward on the steps, and saw in a moment that his personality was the old one, which I had not encountered since the day of his ravings on that terrible ride from Cook. I think that's where we left off. His face was twitching with a mixture of odd emotions, in which fear and triumph seemed to share dominion, and he looked furtively over his shoulder as I closed the door behind him. Sorry, just a bad place that I left off, so we found it now. Okay. Following me clumsily to the study, he asked for some whiskey to steady his nerves. I forbore to question him, but waited till he felt like beginning whatever he wanted to say. At length he ventured some information in a choking voice. Asenath has gone, Dan. We had a long talk last night while the servants were out, and I made her promise to stop preying on me. Of course, I had certain occult defenses I never told you about. She had to give in, but got frightfully angry. Just packed up and started for New York. Walked right out to catch the 8:20 into Boston. I suppose people will talk, but I can't help that. You needn't mention that there was any trouble. Just say she's gone on a long research trip. She's probably going to stay with one of her horrible groups of devotees. I hope she'll go west and get a divorce, anyhow. I've made her promise to keep away and let me alone. It was horrible, Dan. She was stealing my body, crowding me out, making a prisoner of me. I laid low and pretended to let her do it, but I had to be on the watch. I could plan if I was careful, for she can't read my mind literally or in detail. All she could read of my planning was a sort of general mood of rebellion, and she always thought I was helpless. Never thought I could get the best of her, but I had a spell or two that worked. Derby looked over his shoulder and took some more whiskey. I paid off those damn servants this morning when they got back. They were ugly about it and asked questions, but they went. They're her kind, Innsmouth people, and were hand in glove with her. I hope they'll let me alone. I didn't like the way they laughed when they walked away. I must get as many of Dad's old servants again as I can. I'll move back home now. I suppose you think I'm crazy, Dan, but Arkham history ought to hint at things that back up what I've told you. And what I'm going to tell you, you've seen one of the changes too. In your car after I told you about Asenath that day coming home from Maine. That was when she got me, drove me out of my body. The last thing of the ride I remember was when I was all worked up trying to tell you what that she-devil is. Then she got me. And in a flash, I was back at the house, in the library where those damn servants had me locked up, and in that cursed fiend's body. That isn't even human. You know. It was she you must have ridden home with. That praying wolf in my body. You ought to have known the difference. I shuddered at Derby as Derby paused. Surely I had known the difference, yet could I accept an explanation as insane as this? But my distracted caller was growing even wilder. I had to save myself. I had to, Dan. She'd have got me for good at Hallowmass. They hold a Sabbath up there beyond Chesanook, and the sacrifice would have clinched things. She'd have got me for good. She'd have been I, and I'd have been she. Forever. Too late. My body'd have been hers for good. She'd have been a man, and fully human, just as she wanted to be. I suppose she'd have even put me out of the way, killed her own ex-body with me in it. Damn her. Just as she did before. Just as he, or it did before. Edward's face was now atrociously distorted, and he bent it uncomfortably close to mine as his voice fell to a whisper. You know what I hinted in the car? That she isn't Asenath at all, but really old Ephraim himself. I suspected a year ago and a half ago, but I know it now. Her handwriting shows it was when she's off guard. Sometimes she jots down a note in writing that's just like her father's manuscripts, stroke for stroke, and sometimes she says things that nobody but an old man like Ephraim could say. He changed forms with her when he felt death coming. She was the only one he could find with the right kind of brain and a weak enough will. He got her body permanently, just as she almost got mine, and then poisoned the old body he'd put her into. Haven't you seen old Ephraim's soul glaring out of that she-devil's eyes dozens of times, and out of mine when she had control of my body? The whisperer was panting and paused for breath. I said nothing, and when he resumed his voice was near normal. This, I reflected, was a case for the asylum, but I would not be the one to send him here. Perhaps time and freedom from Asenath would do its work. I could see that he would never wish to dabble in morbid occultism again. I'll tell you more later. I must have a long rest now. I'll tell you something of the forbidden horrors she led me into. Something of the age-old horrors that even now are festering in out-of-the-way corners with a few monstrous priests to keep them alive. Some people know things about the universe that nobody ought to know. Can do things that nobody ought to be able to do. I've been in it up to my neck. But that's the end. Today I'd burn that damn Necronomicon and all the rest if I were librarian at Miskatonic. But she can't get me now. I must get out of that accursed house as soon as I can and settle down at home. You'll help me, I know, if I need help. Those devilish servants, you know, and if people should get too inquisitive about Asenath, You see, I can give them her address. Then there are certain groups of searchers, certain cults, that might misunderstand our breaking up. Some of them have damnably curious ideas and methods. I know you'll stand by me if anything happens, even if I have to tell you a lot that will shock you. I had Edward stay and sleep in one of the guest chambers that night, and in the morning he seemed calmer. We discussed certain possible arrangements for his moving back into the Derby mansion, and I hoped he would lose no time in making the change. He did not call the next evening, but I saw him frequently during the ensuing weeks. We talked as little as possible about strange and unpleasant things, but discussed the renovation of the old Derby house and the travels which Edward promised to take with my son and me the following summer. Of Asenath, we said almost nothing, for I saw that the subject was a peculiarly disturbing one. Gossip, of course, was rife, but that was no novelty in connection with the strange menage at the old Crown and Shield house. One thing I did not like was what Derby's banker let fall in an overexpensive mood at the Miskatonic Club about the checks Edward was sending regularly to a Moses and Abigail Sargent and a Eunice Babson in Innsmouth. That looked as if those evil-faced servants were extorting some kind of tribute from him. Yet he had not mentioned the matter to me. I wished that the summer and my son's Harvard vacation would come, so that we could get Edward to Europe. He was not, I soon saw, mending as rapidly as I had hoped he would, for there was something a bit hysterical in his occasional exhilaration, while his moods of fright and depression were altogether too frequent. The old Derby house was ready by December, yet Edward constantly put off moving. Though he hated and seemed to fear the Crown and Shield place, he was at the same time queerly enslaved by it. He could not seem to begin dismantling things, and invented every kind of excuse to postpone action. When I pointed this out to him, he appeared unaccountably frightened. His father's old butler, who was there with other reacquired family servants, told me one day that Edward's occasional prowlings about the house, and especially down cellar, looked odd and unwholesome to him. I wondered if Asenath had been writing disturbing letters, but the butler said there was no mail which could have come from her. That is the end of part 5. Part 6 coming up next, possibly the last part. I'll scroll the bottom if you want to guarantee that, but it's okay. Interesting so far. Good night on stream. Considering making the thumbnail probably for the second part, since the first one was a mobile stream. Just has its own kind of like vertical thumbnail. The horizontal thumbnails for main show. Probably better to make the thumbnail for, so we'll get a good picture of a thing at the doorstep. We could even do that tonight, but we could do it right after we read it, but see how we feel. Probably. Just think about all the sequence of that, playlists, thumbnails, commissions. And yeah, last time, well, we'll get to Macbeth here shortly after this. but it is the very last few days for the gas money donation. So I could really use some help with that. But, active chat comes first, I guess, and I don't know how to get active chat without paying for it, so doing the best we can. Okay. On to part 6 then. Here we go. It was about Christmas that Derby broke down one evening while calling on me. I was steering the conversation toward next summer's travels when he suddenly shrieked and leaped up from his chair with a look of shocking, uncontrollable fright. A cosmic panic and loathing, such as only the nether gulfs of nightmare could bring to any sane mind. My brain! God damn, it's tugging from beyond, knocking, clawing that she-devil even now. A frame, Kamog, the pit of these Shoggoths, Ia, Shub-Nagurath, the goat with 1,000 young. The flame, beyond body, beyond life, in the earth, oh God. I pulled him back to his chair and poured some wine down his throat as his frenzy sank to a dull apathy. He did not resist, but kept his lips moving as if talking to himself. Presently I realized that he was trying to talk to me, and bent my ear to his mouth to catch the feeble words. Again, she's trying. I might have known. Nothing can stop that force, not distance, nor magic, nor death. It comes and comes, mostly in the night. I can't leave. It's horrible. Oh, God damn. If you only knew as I do just how horrible it is. When he had slumped down into a stupor, I propped him with pillows and let normal sleep overtake him. I did not call a doctor, for I knew what would be said of his sanity, and wished to give nature a chance if I possibly could. He waked at midnight, and I put him to bed upstairs, but he was gone by morning. He had let himself quietly out of the house, and his butler, when called on the wire, said he was at home pacing restlessly about the library. Edward went to pieces rapidly after that. He did not call again, but I went daily to see him. He would always be sitting in his library, staring at nothing, and having an air of abnormal listening. Sometimes he talked rationally, but always on trivial topics. Any mention of his trouble, of future plans, or of Asenath would send him into a frenzy. His butler said he had frightful seizures at night, during which he might eventually do himself harm. I had a long talk with his doctor, banker, and lawyer, and finally took the physician with 2 specialist colleagues to visit him. The spasms that resulted from the first questions were violent and pitiable, and that evening a closed car took his poor struggling body to the Arkham Sanitarium. I was made his guardian and called on him twice weekly, almost weeping to hear his wild shrieks, awesome whispers, and dreadful, droning repetitions of such phrases as, "I had to do it. I had to do it. It'll get me, down there in the dark. Mother, Dan, save me. Save me." How much hope of recovery there was, no one could say, but I tried my best to be optimistic. Edward must have a home if he emerged, so I transferred his servants to the Derby mansion, which would surely be his sane choice. What to do about the Crown and Shield place with its complex arrangements and collections of utterly inexplicable objects I could not decide. So left it momentarily untouched, telling the Derby housemaid to go over and dust the chief rooms once a week, and ordering the furnace man to have a fire on those days. The final nightmare came before Candlemas, heralded, in cruel irony, by a false gleam of hope. One morning late in January, the sanitarium telephoned to report that Edward's reason had suddenly come back. His continuous memory, they said, was badly impaired, but sanity itself was certain. Of course, he must remain some time for observation, but there could be little doubt of the outcome. All going well, he would surely be free in a week. I hastened over in a flood of delight, but stood bewildered when a nurse took me to Edward's room. The patient rose to greet me, extending his hand with a polite smile, but I saw in an instant that he bore the strangely energized personality which had seemed so foreign to his own nature. The competent personality I had found so vaguely horrible, and which Edward himself had once avowed was the intruding soul of his wife. There was the same blazing vision, so like Asenath's and old Ephraim's, and the same firm mouth, and when he spoke, I could sense the same grim, pervasive irony in his voice. The deep irony so redolent of potential evil. This was the person who had driven my car through the night 5 months before. The person I had not seen since that brief call when he had forgone the old-time doorbell signal and stirred such nebulous fears in me, and now he filled me with the same dim feelings of blasphemous alienage and ineffable cosmic hideousness. He spoke affably of arrangements for release, and there was nothing for me to do but assent, despite some remarkable gaps in his recent memories. Yet I felt that something was terribly, inexplicably wrong and abnormal. There were horrors in this thing that I could not reach. This was a sane person. Was it indeed the Edward Derby I had known? If not, who or what was it, and where was Edward? Ought it to be free or confined, or ought it to be extirpated from the face of the earth? There was a hint of the abysmally sardonic in everything the creature said. The Asenath-like eyes lent a special and baffling mockery to certain words about the early liberty earned by an especially close confinement. I must have behaved very awkwardly, and was glad to beat a retreat. All that day and the next, I racked my brain over the problem. What had happened? What sort of mind looked out through those alien eyes in Edward's face? I could think of nothing but this dimly terrible enigma, and gave up all efforts to perform my usual work. The second morning, the hospital called up to say that the recovered patient was unchanged. And by evening, I was close to a nervous collapse. A state, I admit, though others will vow it colored my subsequent vision. I have nothing to say on this point, except that no madness of mine could account for all the evidence. I will be right back. That was the end of part 6, by the way. We're on to part 7. Alright then. Let's see. Approaching the end here. We are on to part 7. I have nothing to say on this point except that no madness of mine could account for all the evidence. Okay. Terrific fun. It was in the night, after that second evening, that stark, utter horror burst over me and weighted my spirit with a black, clutching panic from which it can never shake free. It began with a telephone call just before midnight. I was the only one up and sleepily took down the receiver in the library. No one seemed to be on the wire, and I was about to hang up and go to bed when my ear caught a very faint suspicion of sound at the other end. Was someone trying under great difficulties to talk? As I listened, though I heard a sort of half-liquid bubbling noise, glub, 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 which had an odd suggestion of inarticulate, unintelligible word and syllable divisions. I called, "Who is it?" But the only answer was glub, 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 glub. I could only assume that the noise was mechanical, but fancying that it might be a case of broken instrument, able to receive but not to send, I added, "I can't hear you. Better hang up and try information." Immediately I heard the receiver go on the hook at the other end. This, I say, was just before midnight. When that call was traced afterward, it was found to come from the old Crown and Shield house, though it was fully half a week from the housemaid's day to be there. This, I say, was just before midnight. When that call was traced afterward, it was found to some from the old Crown and Shield's house, though it was fully half a week from the housemaid's day to be there. I shall only hint what was found at that house: the upheaval in a remote cellar storeroom, the tracks, the dirt, the hastily rifled wardrobe, the baffling marks on the telephone, the clumsily used stationery, and the detestable stench of lingering over everything. The police, poor fools, have their smug little theories, and are still searching for those sinister discharged servants who have dropped out of sight amidst the present furore. They speak of a ghoulish revenge for things that were done, and say I was included because I was Edward's best friend and advisor. Idiots. Do they fancy those brutish clowns could have forged that handwriting? Do they fancy that they could have brought what later came? Are they blind to the changes in that body that was Edward's? As for me, I now believe that all Edward Derby ever told me. I believe all that he ever told me. There are horrors beyond life's edge that we do not suspect, and once in a while, man's evil prying calls them just within our range. Ephraim, Asenath, that devil called them in, and they engulfed Edward as they are engulfing me. Can I be sure that I am safe? Those powers survive the life of the physical form. The next day in the afternoon, when I pulled out of my prostration and was able to walk and talk coherently, I went to the madhouse and shot him dead for Edward's and the world's sake. But can I be sure till he is cremated? They are keeping the body for some silly autopsies by different doctors, but I say he must be cremated. He must be cremated, he who was not Edward Derby when I shot him. I shall go mad if he is not, for I may be the next, but my will is not weak, and I shall not let it be undermined by the terrors I know are seething around it. One life, Ephraim, Asenath, and Edward, who now? I will not be driven out of my body. I will not change souls with that bullet-ridden lich in the madhouse. But let me try to tell coherently of that final horror. I will not speak of what the police persistently ignored. The tales of that dwarfed, grotesque, malodorous thing met by at least 3 wayfarers in Saint just before 2 o'clock, and the nature of the single footprints in certain places. I will say only that just about the doorbell and knockers waked me. Doorbell and knocker both, plied alternately and uncertainly in a kind of weak desperation, and each trying to keep to Edward's old signal of 3 and 2 strokes. Roused from sleep, my mind leaped into a turmoil. Derby at the door, and remembering the old code. The new personality had not remembered it. Was Edward suddenly back in his rightful state? Why was he here in such evident stress and haste? Had he been released ahead of time, or had he escaped? Perhaps, I thought as I flung on a robe and bounded downstairs, his return to his own self had brought raving and violence, revoking his discharge and driving him to a desperate dash for freedom. Whatever had happened, he was good old Edward again, and I would help him. When I opened the door into the elm-arched blackness, a gulf of insufferably fetid wind almost flung me prostrate. I choked in nausea, and for a second scarcely saw the dwarfed, humped figure on the steps. The summons had been Edward's, but who was this foul, stunted parody? Where had Edward had time to go? His ring had sounded only a second before the door opened. The collar had one of Edward's overcoats, its bottom almost touching the ground, and its sleeves rolled back, yet still covering the hands. On the head was a slouch hat pulled low, while a black silk muffler concealed the face. As I stepped unsteadily forward, the figure made a semi-liquid sound like that I had heard over the telephone. Glub, glub, and thrust at me a large, closely written paper impaled on the end of a long pencil. Still reeling from the morbid and unaccountable fetor, I seized this paper and tried to read it in the light from the doorway. Beyond question, it was in Edward's script, but why had he written when he was close enough to ring? And why was the script so awkward, coarse, and shaky? I could make out nothing in the dim half-light, so edged back into the hall. The dwarf figure clumping mechanically after but passing on the inner door's threshold. The odor of this singular messenger was really appalling, and I hoped, not in vain, thank God, that my wife would not make that my wife would not wake and confront it. Then, as I read the paper, I felt my knees give under me and my vision go black. I was lying on the floor when I came to. That accursed sheet still clutched in my fear-rigid hand. This is what it said. Dan, go to the sanitarium and kill it. Exterminate it. It isn't Edward Derby's anymore. She got me. It's Asenath, and she has been dead 3 months and a half. I lied when I said she had gone away. I killed her. I had to. It was sudden, but we were alone, and I was in my right body. I saw a candlestick and smashed her head in. She would have got me for good at Hallowmass. I buried her in the farther cellar storeroom under some old boxes and cleaned up all the traces. The servants suspected next morning, but they have such secrets that they dare not tell the police. I sent them off, but God knows what they and others of the cult will do. I thought for a while I was all right, and then I felt the tugging at my brain. I knew what it was. I ought to have remembered. A soul like hers, or a frame's, is half detached, and it keeps right on after death as long as the body lasts. She was getting me, making me change bodies with her, seizing my body and putting me in that corpse of hers buried in the cellar. I knew that she was coming. That's why I snapped and had to go to the asylum. Then it came. I found myself choked in the dark in Asenath's rotting carcass. Down there in the cellar under the boxes where I put it, and I knew she must be in my body at the sanitarium, permanently. For it was after Hallowmass, and the sacrifice would work even without her being there. Sane and ready for release as a menace to the world, I was desperate, and in spite of everything, I clawed my way out. I'm too far gone to talk. I couldn't manage to telephone, but I can still write. I'll get fixed up somehow and bring you this last word and warning. Kill that fiend if you value the peace and comfort of the world. See that it is cremated. If you don't, it will live on and on, body to body forever, and I can't tell you what it will do. Keep clear of black magic, Dan. It's the devil's business. Goodbye. You've been a great friend. Tell the police whatever they'll believe. And I'm damnably sorry to drag all this on you. I'll be at peace before long. This thing won't hold together much more. Hope you can read this. And kill that thing. Kill it. Yours, Ed. It was only afterward that I read the last half of this paper, for I had fainted at the end of the third paragraph. I fainted again when I saw and smelled what cluttered up the threshold where the warm air had struck it. The messenger would not move or have consciousness anymore. The butler, tougher fibered than I, did not faint at what met him in the hall in the morning. Instead, he telephoned the police. When they came, I had been taken upstairs to bed, but the other mass lay where it had collapsed in the night. The men put handkerchiefs to their noses. What they finally found inside Edward's oddly assorted clothes was mostly liquescent horror. There were bones, too, and a crushed-in skull. Some dental work positively identified the skull as Asenath's. That will do it for the thing on the doorstep. It is complete. Alrighty, we shall be moving on to Macbeth here very shortly. May as well make a little thumbnail for now. Give a thumbs up for that nice audio track. Nice atmospheric, a lot of ones there, you find. Not bad. So the thing on the doorstep, if we can find like a dark door frame or something like that, that would be good for a thumbnail. That one's pretty good, like a sphere. Yeah, we could try that. I mean, it didn't really relate too much to the actual doorstep, just the time he actually was there, but it's more like in the houses and the car and where they were, so it's not too important part of it, but just to have a little something. We'll try that out. Let's see. Yeah, to make it quite small, so work with that. Almost room for it. You can make it. I believe in you. There's just enough room there, yeah. Alright, so one more time. It's the thing on the doorstep. Yeah, that is the name of it. Finish that. The thing on the doorstep. And then it, of course, just doesn't even save the changes at all. My goodness. It is tricky sometimes. Looked totally fine when I had it there originally. But for whatever reason, it refuses to go through, so we'll do it in sections. However many sections are needed. Yeah, it's pretty pixely, but so it goes. Got it. More or less, I hope. Isn't that funny? Funny sometimes. Love crafts. Okay. Part of the process after all. We want a good thumbnail. Sometimes the resolution sizes are a little difficult. Alright, the thing on the doorstep. Be good, 36. Nope. Another section for this one. Get there eventually, though. These can be smaller. Yeah, I don't need all of it to be that big. It should work. It should work. One word, I mean. That actually works. I mean, I was considering having more space, but now that I look at it all together, I feel like it's more cinematic, exciting thing. So we'll try that for now and get that up tonight. Good to go. Dragon's Roost, and we're good. Doorstep. Should be alright. I mean, I think so. Double check the resolution. Yep, looks good to me. Should be small enough. Definitely shouldn't be too big. It's pretty small font. Alright. Good to go then. And good enough. Alright, well, next up then we have Macbeth. So, ambient music, stop for now. It was nice. Meditation. And we get to Macbeth here. Just my lines to review one more time. And last bit for the gas money donation goal. Once it ends naturally, what is that, 10 days? Yeah. When it ends in 10 days, the end of the month, we'll just clear it off. Probably not do another donation goal for a while because just no participation. Same for our 8-month cheer goal, $20 worth in 8 months. We still have not yet met from just 2,000 bits. Just a few cheers and voice mod activations. 50 bits a piece. Stickers are also less than 50, so kind of sad we do not have the participation. I was hoping for that, but at least it's available. Best I can do is make them available. For Macbeth, though, we'll review one more time, take it nice and slow for these lines, then we will jump into Diablo, the time we have left tonight. As for tomorrow, before the show, tomorrow night, I'm hoping to do a little stream in the morning, afternoon. Don't really need to play any hunt, because I did get the charm unlock tonight. Could save hunt for after this weekend. But we'll just see how it works out, schedule-wise. Hopefully at least a couple hours before I leave for the show. But it really just depends, sleep schedule and all. Take the melatonin probably tonight will help, so skipped it last night, so it'll be more potent tonight. That's the idea. Alright. We'll see. Fear not. No fear. Let's take a look at Macbeth. Once more time, see if I've improved, grown a bit since we originally read it. All this a few months ago when we first read it on stream. So let's take a look. Everything else should be available and good to go. I think so. Alright. Thing on the doorstep. It's interesting enough. Okay, so just my lines for now. Take it slow, steady, and enjoy. This is the sergeant, who like a good and hardy soldier fought 'gainst my captivity. Hail, brave friend. Say to the king the knowledge of the broil as thou didst leave it. The worthy Thane of Ross. My liege, they are not yet come back, but I have spoke with one that saw him die, who did report that very frankly he confessed his treasons, implored your highness's pardon, and set forth a deep repentance. Nothing in his life became him like the leaving it. He died as one that had been studied in his death to throw away the dearest thing he owed, as 'twere a careless trifle. Okay. Oh, by whom? Why do we hold our tongues that most may claim this argument for ours? Nor our strong sorrow, upon the foot of motion. What will you do? Let's not consort with them. To show an unfelt sorrow is an office which the false man does easy. All to England. This murderous shaft that shot hath not yet lighted, and our safest ways to avoid the aim. Therefore to horse, and let us not be dainty of leave-taking, but shift away. There's warrant in that theft which steals itself when there's no mercy left. Yeah, it's good to review because that'll settle things like maybe I was saying, let us not be dainty in leave-taking, but it's actually let us not be dainty of leave-taking. There's a lot of just very tiny subtle things like that. Then after that, have the banquet scene, part 2 after intermission, just serving man basically with wine, help with a table move. Then we have a little parade of kings just with crowns on a silhouetted screen, and then the big one come back to Act 4, Scene 3 before the finale, Act 5. Let us seek out some desolate shade, and there weep our sad bosoms empty. What I believe all wail, what no believe, and what I can redress. As I shall find the time to friend, I will. What you have spoke, it may be so perchance. This tyrant, whose sole name blisters our tongues, was once thought honest. You have loved him well. He hath not touched you yet. I am young, but something you may deserve of him through me, and wisdom, to offer up a weak, poor, innocent lamb to appease an angry god. But Macbeth is. A good and virtuous nature may recoil in an imperial charge, but I shall crave your pardon. That which you are, my thoughts cannot transpose. Angels are bright still, though the brightest fell. Though all things foul would wear the brows of grace, yet grace must still look so. Perchance even there where I did find my doubts, why in that rawness left you wife and child? Those precious motives, those strong knots of love, without leave-taking, I pray you, let not my jealousies be your dishonors, but mine own safeties. You may be rightly just, whatever I shall think. Be not offended, I speak not as an absolute fear of you. I think our country sinks beneath the yoke. It weeps, it bleeds, and each new day a gash is added to her wounds. I think withal there would be hands uplifted in my right, and here from gracious England have I offer of goodly thousands. But for all this, when I shall tread upon the tyrant's head, or wear it on my sword, yet my poor country shall have more vices than it had before, more suffer, and more sundry ways than ever, by him that shall succeed. It is myself, I mean, in whom all the particulars of vice so grafted. It is myself, I mean, in whom I know all the particulars. See, that's another one I've been leaving out. In whom I know. I've just been saying, in whom all the particulars. It is myself, I mean, in whom I know all the particulars of isograph. See, it's good to review, because a lot of these I've just been leaving out or changing, simplifying. It is good to review it, so. It is myself, I mean, in whom I know all the particulars of vice so grafted, that when they shall be opened, black Macbeth will seem as pure as snow, and the poor state esteem him as a lamb, being compared with my confineless harms. It is myself, I mean, in whom I know all the particulars of vice so grafted, that when they shall be opened, black Macbeth will seem as pure as snow, and the poor state esteem him as a lamb, being compared with my confineless harms. I grant him, bloody, luxurious, avaricious, false, deceitful, sudden, malicious, smacking of every sin that has a name. But there's no bottom, none, in my voluptuousness. Your wives, your daughters, your matrons, and your maids could not fill up the cistern of my lust, and my desire all continents impediments would overbear, that did oppose my will. Better Macbeth than such an one to reign. With this there grows in my most ill-composed affections such a staunchless avarice that, were I king, I should cut off the nobles for their lands, desire his jewels in this other's house, and my more having would be as a sauce to make me hunger more, that I should forge quarrels unjust against the good and loyal, destroying them for wealth. Hey, Ace Visconti and the Wraith. Nice roll on those. But I have none, the king becoming graces as justice, verity, temperance, stableness, bounty, perseverance, mercy, lowliness, devotion, patience, courage, fortitude. I have no relish of them, but abound in the division of each several crime, acting it many ways. Nay, had I power, I should pour the sweet milk of concord into hell, uproar the universal peace, confound all unity on earth. If such a one be fit to govern, speak, I am as I have spoken. Macduff, this noble passion, child of integrity, hath from my soul wiped the black scruples, reconciled my thoughts to thy good truth and honor. Devilish Macbeth by many of these trains hath sought to win me into his power, and modest wisdom plucks me from overcredulous haste. But God above deal between thee and me, for even now I put myself to thy direction, and unspeak mine own detraction. Here abjure the taints and blames I laid upon myself for strangers to my nature. I am yet unknown to woman, never was forsworn, scarcely have coveted what was mine own, at no time broke my faith, would not betray the devil to his fellow, and delight no less in truth than life. My first false speaking was this upon myself. What I am truly is thine and my poor country's to command. Whither indeed before thy here approach, old Seaward, with 10,000 warlike men already at a point, was setting forth, now all together, and the chance of goodness be like our warranted quarrel. Why are you silent? Well, more anon. Comes the king forth, I pray you? I thank you, doctor. 'Tis called the evil, a most miraculous work in this good king, which often since my here remain in England I have seen him do. How he solicits heaven himself best knows, but strangely visited people, all swollen and ulcerous, pitiful to the eye, the mere despair of surgery he cures, hanging a golden stamp about their necks, put on with holy prayers. And 'tis spoken, to the succeeding royalty he leaves the healing benediction. With this strange virtue he hath a heavenly gift of prophecy, and sundry blessings hang about his throne that speak him full of grace. My countrymen, but yet I know him not. I know him now, good God betimes remove the means that makes us strangers. What's the newest grief? Be it their comfort we are coming thither. Gracious England hath lent us good seaward and 10,000 men, an older and a better soldier none that Christendom gives out. Messed up a bit on that one last time because we had some other missed lines, so it's good to review that. Be it their comfort we are coming thither. Gracious England have lent us good seaward and 10,000 men, an older and a better soldier none that Christendom gives out. Merciful heaven, what man ne'er pull your hat upon your brows, give sorrow words, the grief that does not speak whispers the overfraught heart, and bids it break. Be comforted. Let's be comforted. Let's make us medicines of our great revenge to cure this deadly grief. Dispute it like a man. Be this the whetstone of your sword. Let grief convert to anger. Blunt not the heart, enrage it. This tune goes manly. Come, go we to the king. Our power is ready, our lack is nothing but our leave. Macbeth is ripe for shaking, and the powers above put on their instruments. Receive what cheer you may. The night is long that never finds the day. Cousins, I hope the days are near at hand that Chambers will be safe. Let every soldier hew him down a bough and bear it before him. Thereby shall we shadow the numbers of our host and make discovery ere and report of us. 'Tis his main hope, for where there is advantage to be given, both more and less have given him the revolt, and none serve with him but constrained things whose hearts are absent too. Now near enough. Your leafy screens throw down, and show like those you are. You, worthy uncle, shall, with my cousin, your right noble son, lead our first battle. Worthy Macduff and we shall take upon us what else remains to do, according to our order. Bum, bum, bum. We have met with foes that strike beside us. I would the friends we miss were safe arrived. Macduff is missing, and your noble son. He's worth more sorrow, and that I'll spin for him. Okay, and the final line there. We've got... We shall not spend a large expense of time before we reckon with your several loves and make us even with you. My thanes and kinsmen, henceforth be earls, the first that ever Scotland in such an honour named. What's more to do, which would be planted newly with the time, as calling home our exiled friends abroad that fled the snares of watchful tyranny, producing forth the cruel ministers of this dead butcher and his fiend-like queen, who, as 'tis thought, by self and violent hands took off her life. This, and what needful else that calls upon us, by the grace of grace, we will perform, in measure, time, and place. So, thanks to all at once, and to each one, whom we invite to see us crowned at Scoon. I think I've been saying so. Thanks be to all at once. I think I've been saying thanks be. It's just so. Thanks to all. So, thanks to all at once, and to each one, whom we invite to see us crowned at Scoon. There's no be, so... We shall not spend a large expense of time before we reckon with your several loves and make us even with you. My thanes and kinsmen, henceforth be earls, the first that ever Scotland in such an honour named. What's more to do which would be planted newly with the times, calling home our exiled friends abroad who fled the snares of watchful tyranny, producing forth the cruel ministers of this dead butcher and his fiend-like queen, who, as 'tis thought, by self and violent hands took off our lives. This, and what needful else that calls upon us, by the grace of grace, we will perform in measure, time, and place. So, thanks to all at once, and to each one, whom we invite to see us crowned at Scoon. Yeah, I've just been saying an extra word, sometimes. I'm removing a word, sometimes I'm adding a word. I don't know which is better, probably. Yeah, it depends. But anyway, that is good for now. Macbeth and Lovecraft. We have a little bit of time for some Diablo 2 Act 5 Hardcore Assassin. Making progress here and there. I was updating Overwatch. Let me take a look at Battle.net here and... Yeah, so I'm gonna play some Overwatch soon because a new Battle Pass, Epic, Mythic, Skin, Reinhardt madness, but we'll take a look at that later. I do not play Battle.net on stream anymore. I've got a summer sale trying to sell me stuff. As always. What are they trying to sell here? Obviously not Diablo 4. Yeah, we're not able to get Diablo 4 yet. But other things on sale. Call of Duty, Dragonflight, half off. Diablo 2, only $13. Yeah, I got that 20 bucks, so I at least waited till it was half off, but now 67% off, not bad. Overwatch 2 Hero Pack, no thanks. Great for new players. Yeah, Diablo 4, great for... Anyway, that's fine. So, yeah, we will get to Diablo 2. I don't like this, yeah, last played, it just launches it right away, so... Anyway, Diablo 3 soon enough, we continue that campaign. Diablo 4, hopefully, before too long. I've already been waiting for it, what, 10 years, so I guess can wait a little bit longer. But, yeah, we're still finishing up Diablo 2, first playthrough, Resurrected. And, display capture only, so we will switch over to that. 1 sec. Alright, good enough then. Good to go. let's pick it up a bit. I'm gonna fix that other time where you type the game title in chat and it won't keep having an error message even though it actually works. We'll find a way to fix that eventually, but for now, here we go. Alright, good enough. Let's take a look. Always online, huh? Yeah, I get back to the online characters at some point, but... Alright, yeah, she is looking good. We have the dead, druids so far. Well, yeah, I lost one of each, like, online and offline, but... They're all hardcore, so... The only one that isn't hardcore is, Barbarian I used to play, basically. Alright, well, Terrific Tuesday is basically our sub-Saturday because it's gonna be another week till we're back to main show because of the performances, and I'm not gonna take the computer with me for performance days because that would just not work out. I'm gonna watch some Black Sails, do some micro readings, stuff like that, so let's enjoy the time we have. Looking good to me. The Trap Assassin. Hopefully everything we need. It would suck to die this close to the end, but always a possibility with hardcore, even though this one's more optimized than what I've heard the Diablo 4 servers. So yeah, going to the Ancient's Way, charms abound, and we did have a couple of these things to sort out. So let me see, level requirement for this one is 26 compared to level 15. Compare those in the store, I guess, if nowhere else. Let's see what we got here. And the helm, pretty sure nothing amazing either compared to my Prez's Koi for Glory, but we'll find which to give to him. Pick up those charms in a moment.
Can I help you?
So we've got Soul Thirst for 650, this one's 650 also. Almost no difference for price, so we'll have to go on actual stats. Got a much better helmet with this one apparently, but just 6 to life, enhanced defense. I like this one still. Missing on. Yeah, I'll give this one to the follower, sure. So sell the gems, at least they're only chip gems, but otherwise, yeah, there is no way to get your gems back. I don't know you can even buy back, so if you sell a socketed item in this one with gems, they're just gone. That's pretty intense. Got the mall here. Thought that'd be very good for her. Two-handed, probably not very good either. I at least got this Eyes and Hearts for set for her, so that is some extra strength. And let me decide which of these to keep then. So we've got fire resistance requirements. Let me just compare the actual stats, that'll be easier. Keeping the helmet, the epic helmet. Oh yeah, a lot more damage on this one, so I'm gonna keep to that one. Sell that one. Level 26, but this one just way better for actual damage. And it has poison. This one is attack rating against demons, which is nice. But they're really pretty similar anyway. I just take the standard damage because there's a lot more than just demons in the game, as we have learned. Alright. Looking good for that then. Hopefully good enough. Considering avatars and things, but I think we're okay. Good enough. Alright. Donate browser open for that live on Twitch anymore. I guess you could hang up BattleNet for that, play Diablo 2 or etc. But it's really not worth it for Steam. You just use the overlay, new overlay, and display capture. I feel like that's even harder. So game capture maybe, but display capture for the new Steam overlay. Steam overlay was buggy for me earlier actually on the playing hunts, so can't even invite anyone. So
I'll put that to good use.
it has some advantages, some drawbacks. All right, stash is open. I got rid of the town portal tome because I wanted more room for a charm. And we've got these for now. Probably need some more mana or something soon, but got that one town portal and the spell is no longer Bound to a hotkey. Let me put it on 8 just to have it.
Not here.
And we'll get back to the rite of passage, Path of the Ancients, if we can remember where the heck that is. And I'm really liking this Cloak of Shadows. We're still working on the martial arts to get that back up. Traps with freaking 15 points into Blade Sentinel. Half my points, Blade Shield also. Let's not forget about that. Yeah, 7 for that. So 6 and 7, Burst of Speed and Blade Shield. I don't really remember where to go for this, but it says Ancient's Way. And we'll get that reward later, I suppose. For now, we just warm up. It's been a good while. Sound, I'm hoping decent, -9, since there's less dialogue, more constant sound effects. Let's adjust this one a little bit to be on the quieter side, because it's a lot of constant combat compared to others which do not have quite as much. Alright, well, we got a epic amulet right away, some mana to work with. Take the supers at least. Can identify that later. Don't need any socketed helms for now. I think this is the right way. It's one of these entrances, isn't it? I'll go to each entrance and check from there, I guess. Oh dear, this is a good box myself in right away. Try to clear him out. Oh, I was a freaking champion too. I was lucky he wasn't more dangerous. Holy. You better watch out. They're all over the place. Hefty damage too. Yeah, it's been a few days. This is a risky way to play right off the bat, but relatively confident since it's normal mode. If it was Nightmare or Hell, there'd be a lot more stipulations. Bust some mana. Oh, he needs some help too, though, doesn't he? Don't thank me yet. Just have to warm up a bit. It's a really good bow, so I do want to make use of it. I mean, it's pretty amazing. Reminds me of the good old days, original Diablo 2. It's just been so improved. Yeah, it's just so nostalgic to see it like that, too. The bloody claws, that's pretty cool. Wonder what makes them red, since I don't have a socket. I have my health there. Yeah, I definitely need some more health.
I can't carry it.
Be needing to stockpile mana. Mana not as important as health. I mean, that's hard to arrange that, apparently. You having trouble there, Ajit? Alright, I'm gonna check this door first, see if it's the right way, otherwise I'll go to another waypoint. Didn't get that other waypoint on the middle either, but we'll get there. Martial arts, silly to have this battle, but it does add to attack rating, so I figured since I'm doing mostly ranged skills anyway, don't really have to have that. Alright, we're cut off here, we have to go all the way down. Alright. We'll get there though. Quite the difference, isn't it? It's pretty fun for what it was, but they made some decent improvements. Quality of life and smoothness. Considerably better. Keep forgetting I have this. It's pretty awesome, so don't want to forget about it. Arrows run low. Yeah, 8 to strength versus that. As long as it doesn't restrict anything, that looks a bit better to me. Don't need stamina, but damage reduce. A scat 1+1 at all assassin skill levels. That's nice in itself. Yeah, I can live without that one. Does he wear amulets in this one? No, it's Diablo 3. That's amazing. Yeah, 1 to all skill levels. So it's all the ones that I have or everything? Yeah, I would think it's all the ones I have. Used to use those cheat charms, the early Battle.net days too. Those are fun a little bit, but yeah, this is better. I like really small riding on them and stuff. Alright, level 2 for everything, so I didn't need that many points in Blade Sentinel, but you know, I'm getting there.
I am overburdened.
Well balanced, well categorized, trapper main, assassin. Not too bad. Oh, I was going the right way, yeah. Whoops.
I am overburdened.
Nothing too great there, probably. Okay. Oh, and also, I was watching the new Halo series. That really, of course, made me want to play Halo. I played the first 2 a good bit, but yeah, the new Halo series pretty awesome. Let me move that up. I mean, just the game series itself, and the series was okay, but of course, there's different things, good, bad. Where is it? Somewhere here. Guess it was closer to the bottom than I thought. Pac-Man Museum. I know I've got Halo here somewhere. Let me see. I don't? I could have sworn I did. Okay. Spider-Man. Yeah, there's a Spider-Man game. Those are my actually first WHD game was the old Spider-Man PC game. Oh yeah, next fest they have for Star Siege, so I was gonna play that a little bit. I had to play that off stream. The ping was just so much on stream, so I'd get to some of that tomorrow possibly, since the playtest ends like next Monday when I'm coming back from the show. So yeah, it's Master Chief Collection is like all the games. Could have sworn I had this on the wish list. Apparently not though. I'm just following it. Yeah, these are all the games more or less. I'm pretty sure. So let me put that to the top. I mean, Darkest Dungeon 2 I'm very excited for, but we have Slay the Spire in the meantime and finishing the first game, so if we can put Halo to the top. Man, it's hard to move stuff. See, now I just got lost somewhere I have no idea where. Oh my goodness. I just wanted to discuss it because the series was pretty good. And now I have absolutely no idea. See, I got moved to... Oh, almost to the top. That's funny. Alright, so moving that to the top for now. 40 bucks, it'll go on sale again. Assume it's already been out for freaking 4 years. That's kind of crazy, but yeah, it's a good time to play some of the multiplayer, some of the campaigns. Start from the beginning, or maybe Reach, which I haven't played. I haven't played Halo 3, 4, Infinite, or Reach, so I don't know if there's even more than that, so... You know, there's other like real-time strategy Halos, but I just want the real Halo. So Darkest Dungeon 2 soon enough. I'll put Halo on the top for now, just because it's pretty good. Oh, that's right. Display capture only. All right, on we go. No retreat. Man, I keep going back and forth the wrong way here. It's just annoying design. Yeah, that frisbee of death doing the trick. How many arrows do I have left? 45. I'll make him count. The projectiles are not very well optimized. I mean, they're good enough for the time, but compared to Diablo 3 projectiles, they're a little lackluster. Just a tad bit. Oh, we got other stuff here. See the well there. So of course I want to drink from the well. Alright, traps work their magic a bit. Let's see about this. Yeah, I like that auto use skill when switching a bit, but these are a tad bit better to do. I mean, do it manually. Alright, so I found 3 doors. This one is to Glacial Trail. I think this is just an extra area. It says go to Ancient's Way. So I feel like this is probably just extra, but I haven't been here yet. Might as well take a look. I feel like just an extra floor. I don't need to go in, but... Oh, we got a champion. Sharp Spell the Quick. With, what? Special ability? Teleportation? Yeah. We might have a Death Nova. I think most of the champions do, but not all of them. Not yet, at least. There'll probably be some that kill you in one hit. Nightmare in Hell, but... For now, nothing too terrible. I'll take the supers at least. Skeletons. Alright, I'll make these last 15 arrows count. What else we got here? More Death Slashers. That's a tad bit irritating. Get that up for sure. Is that a champion or my imagination? Yeah.
I can't carry
Plenty of keys. There's like no key lock chest in Act 5, so far good for that. Let's Phantom Blade Fury them to death. Don't need a magic ring.
I can't carry anymore.
Not really. Wasted the ability there, but there we go. Is that a cooldown or something? Interesting. A few more here and there. Sorry, the keyboard and mouse are so loud. I'm trying to optimize that. Don't want the game to be too loud either, so it really is a balancing act. All these things. Ooh, there's the level up. Very nice. Doing general stats for the most part. And it's time for the Death Sentry, I think, right? Yeah. Shadow Warrior pretty cool too, though. I like the traps, I guess, at the moment, so let's do Shadow Warrior. That lasts for as long as they're alive, basically. So that's a good one. That does no damage. Yeah, Shadow Warrior, very similar to Blade Shield, but there they are. Got my Shadow. So they mimic my abilities, copy most things.
I can't carry anymore.
Just a clone, basically. Oh, got even Blade send them. So they should be pretty good. Just an extra companion, basically. Good to get that. And then later you get Shadow Master. Just the evolution of it, basically. But that is just level 30, so we're ready for that next. We'll see. I like Venom. Poison damage to your weapons. That's just adding poison damage, so that's good for demons for sure. Assassins are great demon killers because they have abilities like that. Very specific like types of add-ons you only get Diablo 2. There's nothing like that in Diablo 3 in quite the same style, same way, so that definitely extended a bit from Diablo 1. Oh, Shadow needs some help. I don't know if I can even heal the Shadow. Yeah, I didn't think so. They're just like an illusion, basically. Powerful illusion, but still an illusion. So I probably do want a hotkey for them at some point, but for now I'm just killing the champions. Yeah, I guess I can put it to 8. That's fine. Until I get that trap, then it'll be 8 because there's no 0. Oh, there is 0. So it goes up to 0. That's cool. Basically, I had 10 hotkeys then. Yeah, that's pretty good. They're good for what they are, I mean. Yeah, I kind of remember them back in the day. It's been a while, but I didn't play Assassin super heavy back in the day. I played more Necromancer, Barbarian than anything, I guess. Alright, looking good. What have we got here? The Drifter Cavern. Still don't know if I'm going the right way, but we will find out. Backtrack as needed. Just sucks they always respawn, you know. Drifter Cabin. Probably not each way. I remember this taking me a while to find. Ooh, that was a good one.
I am overburdened.
They weren't too tough, whatever that was. You don't have to summon from that far. Oh yeah, the misses are cool to see too. I added that recently. Gold Horde. Cut them down.
I am overburdened.
We collected decent assortment, not too much of anything. Probably more mana at this point. Mana's harder to find. I'd rather buy it, but I don't, you know. Need some now. Gotta remember to use that Cloak of Shadows. It's just not what you think. It is really good. Oh, I got a sprint. Yeah, stamina. Not necessary at this point, but it's whatever. Alright. Oh, that's a champion, yeah. You're alright, calm down, Shadow. Shadow makes more noise than my character. All these hit effects, it's funny. Alright, clear them out easy enough. Got 3 arrows. Use them for a champion. And by champion, I mean elites. Champions are the blue ones, elites are the named ones. Okay. It's just funny, you know. You would think elites would be these. But it's the other way around, just the way they decided to do it. It's alright. So watch for the elites in this case. I guess that's always how it is. Diablo, I just, for some reason, think it should be the other way around. Ruby. You're alright up there. I don't think so. Ooh, she had a good Nova. Is that hers? Seemed like it. Zapping down. Goes it for my arrows. I'll head back to town, I guess. Oh yeah, blowing those boys up. That's fine.
I can't carry anymore.
Mostly mana. Rejuvenation 2. Got just 3 slots to spare. Let's use that town portal. Probably a waypoint around here somewhere, but we don't need to wait for it by any means. That to the ruby collection then. Actually, we can transmute that, so we'll do that. Testing it out there. And other ones in the belt. Should be enough health for now, but depends what I run into. Yeah, I can store that or whatever. Somewhere. Level 19. Probably don't need to keep that, but strength is a good one. I've got those and a town portal back in the mix. As long as you can use the spell, then
Not here.
doesn't matter, yeah.
Not here. Not here. Not here.
Alright. And yeah, see what Mama's reward is, I guess. That's what it says, at least. Let's see.
Thank you so much for bringing Anya back to us. I have devised this spell to increase your resistances as a token of my thanks. I know it isn't much, but I hope you find it helpful. Please, go talk to Anya. She has urgent news concerning Nilathok.
Is it gonna work? Resistance? No. I'm telling you last time. It's like, yeah, you're teasing me about the spell, but you're not actually giving it to me.
What are your needs? Look, I must apologize. I feel responsible for... You have proven yourself. If Larzer could sing or dance half as well as he smiths, he'd be married by now. Just look at those shoulders.
Alright, well, for some reason that reward isn't working, so maybe I need an inventory slot. Probably. That's probably what it is. No? Okay. For whatever reason. Alright, we will pick it up from there. Looking good enough. I don't know where this other stuff is and things, but we got all we really need. We'll be back to it soon, so until next time, hopefully sometime on stream tomorrow, we'll figure it out. But for now, could be heading out. I'll get those arrows next time. Yes. What? I got 2 epics in one drop? Man, these champions are the ones to go for when it comes to good gear. Holy. Alright, I'm gonna identify them. Got 2 epics. I had 1 epic before this, and I get 2 epics all the way. Holy, steel driver. It'd actually be really awesome if I wanted a 2-hand. There's a 2-hander.
Impossible.
Curious just what it looks like for now. Big ol' hammer there. And let me see, yeah, definitely store that. Shared. Pretty amazing. And then we have, let me see, actually switch their hands? No, kind of funny though. Then we have the other, let me get a town portal so I don't wait to come back. Yeah, I don't think I do this charm thing again. It's just the one character I wanted to try it on. Fully optimize, you know. Might have to sacrifice a couple of things. I could have thought of that in town, but they're just potions. Not a big deal. We got long battle bow for a very nice. Only been a couple hours. Yeah, the reading just makes it feel like so much longer. Got too little Diablo, but let me see. Wizen draw. That's probably better than mine. Huh. Interesting. Fires magic arrows. Yeah, that's pretty good. Do you need arrows then? Well, no, I really want to try it out. Yeah, I still need arrows. Alright, well, we'll see from there. Looking good though. And glad we could get to a little bit. Hopefully a chance to have some chatters tomorrow. But we shall see. If not, it was still good fun. Some good readings. Good times. And we'll pick it up soon. No need for a dragon raid. Thank you for enjoying on YouTube and for any lurkers throughout the evening here on Twitch. Until tomorrow, hopefully at some point we'll get to a little bit of something. Maybe just more Diablo. Till then, good night. On Twitch. Until tomorrow, hopefully.